Let's give it up for the band leading us in worship today. Man, I love the 11:30 crowd, man. Y'all just bring the energy, and I love it. I love it, and I'll give you back, all right? So today we're continuing our series for the house, and every week we're talking about different concepts when it comes to the church, and as a believer, we just covered discipleship, and now we're talking about an attitude towards the house of God. And we believe that you should find a house, right? Find a house that you could be for, that you could be devoted to, that you could give of yourself and invest and believe that life change and that God's word is moving and impacting. And the thing I love about our church is that you don't have to worry. You don't have to wonder, is it happening? It is happening all around us every single week. And so today we're going to celebrate some of those things, but also we're going to be looking at two real concepts out of Acts chapter 2, and it's going to be looking at the first disciples and some of the first churches. So the book of Acts houses the first church examples. And then we're going to look at our lives and we're going to say, how do we measure up against Acts chapter 2? And does that give us something to shoot for, you know? And so there's going to be two areas, and that's going to be, they were devoted to the teachings of the apostles, which were the teachings of Christ, and then they were devoted to being together. And so I want you to begin thinking about that with me. You know, how are you on being devoted to the teachings of Christ? How are you on being devoted to being together? And I would say to you that the latter is probably slightly more difficult in today's culture than the former. And I think that a lot of us, by the fact that we're here, are devoted in some form or fashion on some levels, some continuing spectrum, to the teachings of Christ. We want to do things God's way. But man, being devoted to being together in today's, so many Christians live in isolation. And I hope today that I could preach this in a way that you would consider maybe you need to make room for community in your life. And if you're not prioritizing community, then are you doing it the right way? And if there's some things that need to be adjusted, that your heart would be open to the teaching, to the Holy Spirit, to the need that is in our community today. And so obviously our church is exploding. And so that means that there's so much need and so much opportunity. So I'm going to be preaching about those two things today. And I hope that you would receive this. And obviously the message is always for you to receive and to contemplate where you stand on the matter. In Acts chapter 2, this is the first church reference that we have. And it says that after Peter preached, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship. That's our word that we'll use today. We'll say togetherness. To the breaking of bread, which was enjoying a meal together. This is separate from communion. And to prayer, okay? So they were devoted to these things. You could really sum up the last three things, prayer, fellowship, breaking the bread, togetherness, and then we'll talk about the teachings in the first half of the message. So, point number one, devoted. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in. Would you guys say that that is a general truth in life? That if you are half-hearted, then you get half-hearted results. If you are all in when it comes to your marriage, you get all in results, man. If you're all in on your parenting, you get all in results. If you're all in on your career, then you get all in results. But the same measure is proportionately true. And so today I hope that we might look at that word and we might say, what does devotion look like? Obviously, if you were to look it up in the dictionary, it talks about expressing, this affinity or adoration, love, commitment. And I think that we could all agree that devotion has a certain attitude to it, right? Like whenever you see someone that's devoted, you know what that looks like. Like Texas high school football, if you see a grandma out there, grandma's not just coming to sit quietly in the stands, right? She's got like the big foam finger, she's got like a cowbell over there, she's got a clacker, I don't know. But grandma's not just going to sit. You never see a grandma at Texas high school football like, that's nice. She's like, my baby's on the field, baby scored a touchdown. She's yelling and standing. You say, that grandma is devoted, right? She is devoted. And so whenever we see devotion, we know what devotion looks like. Devotion is not quiet about how it feels about things. And so it says here that they were devoted to the teachings of the apostles. So we can see it has an attitude, it has a certain passion. We could even say that there's a close connection between passion and we could even say obsession, right? And sometimes I think obsession would kind of have a negative connotation. But I think you can be healthy in an obsession and you can have unhealthy obsessions, right? Like you should be obsessed about the well-being of your family, right? If a husband can go to bed at night, a father can go to bed at night and his family's in disarray and he sleeps like a baby and that doesn't stress him out, well, I got questions, right? I got questions on his devotion. If you're fighting like cats and dogs inside of your marriage and it doesn't concern you, it's not something that you might pray about, it's not something that you seek counsel about, it's not something that you seek God's word about, it's not something that you watch a video. Yeah, of course you would. You're devoted. And so devotion gives forth effort, always. Universally, devotion leads to effort. And so we have to add effort to our beliefs in order to activate them, right? They were devoted to the teachings of God's word. That means that they were there. They showed up to those things and they were passionate about those beliefs. And we'll get into those in just a little bit. But before we do, I wanted to kind of give you a modern day example. And the football gods bless us all the time with sermon material. And so last Sunday, we had such an event that I'd like to bring forth to you. Now, I know there's like a significant portion of the crowd that's probably, you don't know anything about football, you don't care anything about football. Trust me, this illustration transcends football. So here is the former starting quarterback as of last week for the Indianapolis Colts. His name is Anthony Richardson, okay? Anthony Richardson. Now, he was taken 4th overall 2 years ago in the draft and is considered by many to be a raw talent, a phenom in the making. He is about 6'4", 6'5", 250 pounds, can run like the wind, and is able to throw the ball 70, maybe even 80 yards in the air, which even at the NFL standards is incredible. And he played decently last year, got hurt, was out for the season, came back this year. First game, crushed it. Second game, Then he got hurt again. So now he comes back and he's healthy. Played last week, didn't do so well. And then this previous Sunday, I guess that'd be 2 weeks ago. Thank you. This is the first time this happened in this building, by the way. Well, it happened a while ago. I was like, is that a speaker? And then, nope, that's the Lord. As he was playing, they got to a 3rd down situation, and he scrambled, and he got tackled. Well, it was 2nd down when this happened, and when he got tackled, because of his previous injury, he tapped his helmet, and everybody's like, "Oh no, is he hurt again? How unfortunate!" So he came out of the game, and then a little bit later, he re-entered the game, which is not uncommon when a guy gets hurt, might tweak an ankle, they go over, they wrap it, go in the tent, they evaluate him, and then they send him back out on the field. But after the game, this is where it went a little squirrely. They said, "Hey, when you got tackled, we noticed you tapped your helmet and you came out of the game. Were you hurt?" And he said, "No, I did a lot of running around on that previous play, and I was just tired." Now, the football world was lit on fire. Okay, Cam Newton, a former NFL great who was a Pro Bowler several years, and I believe had an MVP year, on his podcast, he said, "Well, I don't want to go too hard on the young man, but you can't have it both ways. The previous year, while he was out, he went on a podcast and he said he found it was actually easier playing in the NFL than it was at the college level. Does anybody think that's true? All right? Because that is 100% wrong. There are 32 humans, 20 of which are decent at it, 5 of which are incredible at it, that live on the planet that can play NFL football at the quarterback position. If you're wondering if we have one of those top 5, the answer is no. Anyway. I am 50 years old. And in my 50 years of watching football at every level, passionately, I have never seen a quarterback who scrambled, got tired, and he's 22 years old. You can't be tired when you're 22. You're not allowed to be tired when you're 22 years old. Come get 50 and let me tell you what tired looks like, all right? So he taps his helmet and goes out of the game. This is your shot, bro. This is what you were brought in here for. Quarterbacks have to answer the bell. Another former quarterback was talking about how if he were able to claw his way up and into the huddle, that's why you get paid to be the leader of the team. Can you imagine all the other guys that are giving it all they got and they're tired too, but they're staying in, they're hurt too, but they're staying in, and your quarterback, the face of the franchise, got a little tired and tapped his helmet? Oh my gosh. Now I want to introduce you, just for contrast, to another gentleman. Do you guys know who this is? Say his name if you know who he is. That's Ronnie Lott. Now, you young bucks, you don't know who Ronnie Lott is. That's fine. Ronnie Lott was an assassin, okay? Ronnie Lott was allowed to commit felonies on the football field. And this is the time when football was real, and all the men said, hey, this is when you hit people. And he said, I wanted to hit people, I wanted to hurt people, and I didn't want to just hurt them. I wanted their family at home to hurt as a result of my hit that I put on their loved one. Yes, that was said out loud by Ronnie Lott, okay? So here is a guy that in a playoff game, in a playoff run, he hit a guy so hard that as he hit that guy's face mask hit his pinky, and essentially his pinky exploded. And then in order to continue the playoff run, they gave him a choice. He could either stop and they could put a pin in it and try to recover the pinky, or we could do this. He was willing to sacrifice and amputate his pinky so that he could continue to play for his team. Now, I want you to imagine Anthony Richardson having to sit down with this guy sitting there with his 4 Super Bowl rings and half a pinky, and tell me who's devoted to their team. Tell me who's showing up for their, tell me what it cost you to get those rings on your fingers. Now, let's bring it home. The disciples were devoted. I want to ask you, how devoted are you to the things that matter? How devoted are you to the things of God? How many times are we tapping on our helmet because we're tired? Do you think there's not a reason to show up and do God's work in God's house so that someone else could experience life change? I'm going to tell you, as your pastor, I'm devoted. You don't even know all the things that go on behind the scenes that would keep us from being able to put forth the word of God to you. But we show up every single week because we never know. Is it going to be your week? Is it going to be your week? Is it going to be someone else's week? But that's what we do because we know the power that is in the word of God. Devoted should be what pastors look like. Devoted should be what elders look like. Devoted should look like what life group leaders look like. Devoted should be what every church member looks like. If we were doing a schoolyard pick, yes. If we were doing a schoolyard pick, all right, and Jesus was the team captain, and we were going to use all the metrics that we use for athleticism, but we were going to change it to Christianity, okay? And so he's going to get first pick, and he's going to pick his lineup to go out there and play this game of Christianity, right? And he was going to pick based upon devotion. Would you get picked? Would Jesus want you on his team based upon your devotion? Now, I say that, and immediately I'll tell you that if you're saying, Tim, am I perfect enough to be on Jesus' team? That's not the question. None of us are perfect enough. You know, the reason why God wants you on his team is not because of your perfection. It's not because you've gotten it right. It's not even because your good outweighs your bad. He wants us on his team because of grace, okay? Grace. God's grace allows you to participate on the team. When we talk about they were devoted to the teachings of Christ, what were the teachings of Christ? What did Jesus say? He said, I am the way, finish it with me, the truth, and that's right. When Peter preached, he said Jesus was God. He echoed John chapter 1, verse 1 and 2. He said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And that Word came into this world, and it was the light of men. And the light shined in the darkness, and the darkness could not overcome it. It is that Jesus that they were devoted to, that Jesus that went on the cross and died so he could pay for the sins that all of the people that are sitting in here. And yet, it says that he also was not only paying for sin, but purchasing the opportunity for every soul in all of human history to have the opportunity to choose to believe in a God that could save them from their sins. Not only did he die on the cross, he rose on the third day, demonstrating his power over sin, hell, and the grave. So when we are committed, when we are devoted to the teachings of Christ, that is what we are devoted to, that it's all about Jesus, and that Jesus picks us based upon his grace. Now, don't you have gratitude that he allows you to play the game? Don't be tapping out on your church saying, oh, I had a hard week, I'm tired, I'm going to sleep in. Come on now, this is God's house. Look at me, tell me why you couldn't be here. If you only knew what it took last week for me to be here. I'm not even going to get into it. Acts chapter 2, verse 42, it says, everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. There was an awe factor. And sometimes in Christianity, we've gotten so good at it. I mean, our worship, you guys can't say that that's not good. That is good worship. I mean, these people up here are playing awesome. They're singing awesome. The heart's behind it. It's not just a performance. It's a worship. The preaching, I think it's pretty good. The production is good. Do you think that we can ever begin taking for granted what God is doing? Like when you woke up this morning, when I said you get in what you get out of it what you put in. Did you wake up this morning, man? I'm going to God's house today. I'm going to God's house. Like, I'm going to go worship. God's going to let me come to his house today and worship his name with abandon. I'm going to get to hear God's word, and maybe it'll be the word that transforms an area of my life and sets me free from a prison that I've been in. I mean, I can't wait to go down there. I'm going to see the people, the fellowship. I'm going to get to, dude, I get to see God work in people's lives. I get to be a part of that. Or do you walk in like, man, I gotta go to church today. I don't even really want to go. My wife told me we gotta go. I gotta go to church. Do you think what you're gonna get out of it is exactly the same energy that you're bringing to it? You come expecting, your cup will be filled up to the point of overflowing. You come distracted, you'll leave distracted. You come in here angry, not ready to receive, you'll leave here angry. You come in here frustrated, you'll leave. You come in here busy, you'll leave busy. You see, they walked into church with a sense of awe. because they got to be a part of what God was doing. And I think sometimes we've lost our sense of awe just to be in his house, just to be in his presence. Now, mind you, the church today looks nothing like the church in the past. Like in the book of Acts, they didn't have a digital board. They didn't have air conditioning either. They didn't have electrical instruments. They didn't have microphones. They didn't have student pastors. They didn't have a foyer. They didn't have coffee bar, They just had church. And while we may do church different, the essence does not change. Did you hear that in Monica's story? She's been here 18 years at every level of our church. And you know what doesn't change? Our love for people. Our love for people so much that we want to show up because it might be your day. This week I heard a story of a man recently started attending our church. If you need to be in awe and wonder, maybe is God working? One of our staff members went out with a person, and I asked for permission to share this story from an anonymous perspective, but I felt like it needed to be shared, and it was apropos for the day. So I heard this story on Friday. Had the gun out, had it in his mouth. His wife walked in just in time to knock it out of his hand. And then that week, they walked through the doors of Genesis Metro Church. And he said, through Genesis Metro Church, obviously, God has saved his life. That wasn't 5 years ago. That wasn't 10 years ago. That wasn't 18 years ago. That wasn't 22 years ago when we moved here. That was this week. Why do you think we're devoted to the teachings of Christ? Why was it necessary to be devoted for the 22 years and how many ever weeks that led up to last week? Because if you don't fight through all of that dysfunction, if you don't fight through all that difficulty, do you know when devotion is on display? Not when it's going great, not when it's easy, not when everybody's singing your praises and shouting hallelujah, you're on a mountaintop and the money's flowing left and right. You can't find devotion. You find devotion when it gets hard. You find devotion when your talent now has to have work ethic and has to fight for that next inch, fight for that next yard. Don't you think when you hear a story like that, it makes all of those difficult times, you say, worth it for that person to find life in Christ, to find the ability to turn it around and look at life through a different perspective, to allow the darkness to flee and allow the light to replace it. Don't you think it's worth it that we show up in here for stories like that? What if today was your day and nobody showed up? What if I didn't show up? Well, think about that. Dude, you don't even know all that it takes for all of this to happen, and yet it happens every week. Now, what I'm trying to say is we need more people that are willing to help. And you wonder, are you needed? You are not excess. You are not extra. You are essential to what we are doing here at Genesis Metro Church. Let's go, church. All the believers, verse 44, were together. When you take fellowship at the front end, together. Breaking bread, together. Prayer, together. That was 3 in the beginning. Now we'll get to 4. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold their property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together. By my count, that's 5. In the temple courts, they broke bread in their homes and ate together. There's 6. With glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. Together, we win. It's just that simple. Christianity was not meant to be lived in isolation. It is not a spectator sport. It is not intended for you to live out your faith Like, this is a very new thing in Christianity. But have you ever heard someone say, well, I have a personal faith? Has anybody ever heard this? Like, I got a personal faith. You know, I don't get involved in organized religion. I just got my personal faith. I'm gonna deal with that in just a little bit, but I'm just gonna say you're on the wrong end. You're on the wrong end of that. They were devoted to the teachings and to being together. That was what the example of the disciples in the first church gave to us. What will togetherness do? 4 things. Togetherness will make you sacrifice because you want to be able to share. They no longer looked at their stuff as their stuff. They looked at their stuff as an opportunity. What God had blessed them with was now an opportunity to bless the church as there was need. See, there's a connection in Christianity between the physical and the spiritual. And since the beginning of time, when Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, they brought the first physical dilemma and consequence that was passed upon all men, and that is, namely, our struggle with death. Death is always going to defeat every single human that ever lives. It is a physical consequence of sin that only has a spiritual remedy. So sin set forth a problem for man is that we will constantly have these physical struggles. In the Bible, it is a systematic theology concept that there's a physical dilemma, whether that be a resource issue, like the widow of Zarephath, she ran out, she didn't have enough. Like the disciples in the New Testament, they were trying to feed the 5,000 and they only had a couple of loaves and a couple of fish, physical problem. Whether it was someone that was paralyzed and they brought the person to Jesus, someone that was blind, they brought the person to Jesus. Here were all these physical dilemmas and issues, and the only way to solve those particular physical dilemmas was a spiritual answer. So there has to be a connection as you progress between the physical and the spiritual. Know this, the only answer to your greatest physical or natural difficulties, your proclivities, your sin nature, your idiosyncrasies, your bad habits, there's a connection between that dilemma and the gap it creates and how will you solve that problem. And if you could solve it on your own, I assume you already would have. But if you found that it's defeating you more than you're defeating it, and God is saying, feed the 5,000, and you're like, look at what I have, God. I don't have enough. The great thing about it is that your physical dilemma is no match for his spiritual provision. And so you got to lean into the spiritual if you want to solve the physical. So Jesus allows us to defeat death. He's able to multiply our little and make it enough for everyone in the community. And so you got to ask yourself, if you see this connection in the first church, is that connection evident in your life? Do you have that desire to sacrifice so that you have the opportunity to share as the church grows, as the church multiplies? Not only did togetherness make them willing to sacrifice, togetherness will make you show up. If you heard that story that I just shared a moment ago, and you knew that someone else's Sunday, that they were going to experience life change in a profound way, hinged on your service that Sunday, would you show up? Would you? Of course you would. You would never want someone to not experience that life change. I'm telling you, it's like that every single Sunday, every single Wednesday, every single Tuesday, every time it's time for life group, every time it's time for sisterhood retreat, brotherhood retreat, coming up in February, by the way, camp that's going to be in August this year. There's going to be so much opportunity for life change. And togetherness, when I have that value, it will make me show up. Because I can tell you, I don't mind missing the Cowboys playing right now. I don't mind it, right? Like, no, I'm sorry. I don't mind it, you know. if that means that someone else could experience life change, football compared to family? Come on, family every single time. You see what like, if you value this, then it'll make you let go of the things that are a lesser priority. Togetherness will also make you open your hearts with compassion. Compassion for the lost that have yet to find the light. Compassion for those that are in pain. If you think in a congregation our size, we don't have people that are suffering, that are battling cancer actively, that are getting over the loss and mourning their loved ones that have passed on. If you don't think that there's all kinds of myriad of pain going on around you, then you're crazy. You're just out of touch. Just because your life is going great doesn't mean everybody's life is going great. Whenever you are right with God, and you're devoted to the teaching, you're devoted to togetherness, the Bible says, bear one another's burdens. How are you going to do that if you're not together? How are you going to do that if you don't know? How are you going to do that if you're not in community? Can't. You can't. You literally can't. So someone else's pain literally is designed for you to carry. And someday I'm going to be in pain. And you know what I'm going to expect from you? Help me carry it. That's what we should have with our brothers and sisters in Christ. If you're in isolation, how does that work? How does that happen? Not only open hearts for compassion, but we see compassion for believers that are in the process. I want us to have compassion for believers that are in the process. And what does that mean? Because we have compassion for the lost for sure. Everyone in here, do we have compassion for the lost? And the church said, amen. Do we have compassion for people in pain? Amen. Yeah. Okay. So the last one, compassion for people that are in the process. What do I mean by that? In a healthy church, you should have a cross-section of lost people that have yet to know Christ. You should have a cross-section of people that are mature believers so that they can guide the immature believers. But those ones that are in the middle are the ones that are in the process. They are not polished. They are not perfected. They do not know the Bible backwards and forwards. As a matter of fact, if you ask them some basic Bible questions, they probably would not know the answers. You told them to look up something in Zechariah, they would go to the front, to the table of contents, in order to figure out who Zechariah. You know what I'm saying? And this was profound to me when I planted Genesis Metro Church. Now, I'm going to use a very coarse illustration to explain to you how I knew we were hitting the mark. Have you ever heard someone use the F word in church? Has anybody ever heard this? Has anybody heard this? I hadn't either, okay? So I was a Baptist, and the Baptists, see, we're different. We hide all of our sin, okay? It's not that the Baptists don't say it, they just won't say it around their pastor, right? It's just like drinking. They'll drink, but they won't drink around their pastor. As a matter of fact, there's an old joke. What's the difference between a Methodist, they're allowed to do everything, by the way, and a Baptist, when you see them in the liquor store, what's the difference? The Methodist will say hello to you. The Baptist is just, I pray he don't see me, okay? So when we were planting and I remember we were at the elementary. As a matter of fact, it was before we got to Pink, we were over here at Bowles Elementary, and this dude came up to me. He's like, hey, pastor, this is our first time here, and he's talking to me. He's like, we're new to church, and then all of a sudden, like some effing something came out, and I was like, and I was looking at the roof, and I was like, how did it not just fall in right there? Does this dude not know? Thank you. I was like, does this dude not know you can't say that? And I will tell you that it was like God, because I grew up unchurched. That's when people, that's the way I was raised. At 5 years old, I could use them all in context. And I'm like, if Jesus attracted the sinners, then shouldn't our church attract the sinners? Now, hear me, all the parents that are in the room, some sitting with your children. Pastor Tim is not saying embrace the F word in any way, shape, or form. We are just being clear here. But do I want to sanitize our church to where people have to put on a facade that doesn't have authenticity written on it, and we have to act like our life is all together when in reality it's falling apart and coming apart at the seams, and someone has to walk in here and act polished when in reality they're going through the biggest problem of their life? We've had people that walk in that say, I've already drawn up the papers, we were going to go to church one more Sunday, and we were going to file on Monday, and God saved those marriages out of the fire. What I'm trying to say is I want people to walk in no matter where they're at in life and have a seat at the table of truth and allow God to transform their lives by the power of the grace of God. What I'm trying to say is we're welcoming people that are in the process. If you've ever walked into a church and you feel like, oh, I do not fit with these people because they are acting like they have it all together, I promise you, I've been pastoring all my life. They don't have it together. They're just better actors than you are. I pray we never get to the point that our church doesn't have authentic community. Real conversations. Your heart should have compassion for unbelievers, for people in pain, and people that are in the process. Lastly, you will not only open your hearts with compassion, you'll open your homes. You'll open your homes. Most people in this North Dallas area look at their house like it's a castle to defend, when in reality it should be a connection point for God to use. We look at it like it's almost a trophy. There's like the facade of a trophy on the outside. I want you to know something from the bottom of my heart. No one has ever looked at your house and said, you know what? Look at that house. I need Jesus. No one. Ever. So the facade of the trophy on the outside is not the goal. When we see that they were devoted to the teachings, but not only to the teachings, to togetherness. It's not the facade of the trophy on the outside, it's the table. The table on the inside. I guarantee you hang around with Genesis Metro long enough. If you dive in, you'll be sitting at a table. You'll be breaking bread, having a meal, and talking about life. Saying, how can we do it better? And some of you were raised like me, you have no idea how to do it the God way. How are you ever going to learn? In your profession, you network. You hustle. How about your Christianity? If you're never around other people that know how to get along, know how to raise children in a godly way, how will you figure that out on your own? You need community. Not just when you're on the mountaintop, but really it's when you're in the valley. So God intended the church to be devoted to being together. I'm going to demonstrate that with one last illustration, because it said that as the church was devoted to being together and then devoted to the teachings, the Lord added to the church, verse 47, those who were being saved daily. Since we opened Genesis Metro, these are the numbers. Sunday morning attendance this year, 57,484. GM Kids Sunday attendance, 12,682. Fuse Wednesday attendance, 13,985. Young Adult Tuesday attendance, 2,504. Camp, Conference, and Retreat attendance, 1,572. Baptisms, 282. Number of local schools represented at Fuse. Are we impacting the next generation? Which is the largest budget item that we ever have, ever will have. We'll be investing in the next generation. Over 100 FISD and other schools represented at Fuse every single Wednesday. You tell me, are we devoted? Devoted to the teachings, devoted to being together is equaling life change. We did not create the model. All we do is take the playbook that Jesus handed to the apostles and we run the same play because it works every single time. The play does not change. So we have to ask ourselves, if those are the things that we're to be devoted to, how is it that many of us would say, Tim, I want that. I want that for my life. I want that for my family. But that's not what I'm experiencing. I'm the shepherd that knows his sheep. Example A. This is apple pie a la mode, all right? Photo now. Can you guys smell it? Apple pie a la mode. Simple dish. You got two components. You got the vanilla ice cream on the top, and then you got the apple pie that's down below. And unless you're a psychopath maniac, no one ever jumps into this dish and knocks the ice cream off to the side. And don't even come at me, all you, I got a dairy issue. Not today. Not today. Not today. Whatever this pain is after the process, worth it today, okay? Worth it. So you slice this pie, and then you get your dollop of ice cream, and then like a surgeon, there's a certain mixture, okay? And you gotta be able to carve out with your spoon, okay, a little bit of the ice cream, and then you go down, and if they've done their job, the last layer that you're gonna go through, right, there's gonna be a little crunch, right? Don't give me that soft, namby-pamby crust, pie crust that you bought from Walmart. No, you make that crust, all right? You bake that crust. You get some crunch in your crust if you're gonna know what I'm talking about here. And so now you got your spoon, and you get it in there, you get the ice cream, and then you push down there and a little crunch. And then you gotta navigate to your mouth. Explosion, right? Amazing. God made apple pie a la mode, okay? That's how good it is. It's in the Bible. Now, when you eat that ice cream, when you eat that apple pie, are you tasting just the ice cream? No. Are you tasting just the apple pie? No. What are you tasting? You're tasting the mixture. The mixture. It is its own taste. In order for you to experience Christianity the way that I'm talking, in order for you to experience devotion the way the disciples did it, you got to have both. You got to have the teachings, and you got to have the togetherness. If you just have the teachings, all you have is legalism, because you're trying to gather knowledge so that you know more about the Bible. Who's that for? You or for the next? No, it's for you. If you have togetherness without the teachings, all you have is a social club. We might as well go play bunco. We might as well go play golf, hit the links, because there's no difference. You see, if you're Christianity, you need to get your spoon out, and you need to both be devoted to the teachings, the Word of God, but be devoted to each other. If you got to rearrange, if you got to reprioritize, if you got to reallocate, then that's what you do for the team. That's what you do for the house. You start living that apple pie a la mode Christianity, you'll come in here with awe, and you'll sing unashamed. Gratitude wells up inside your heart for just the opportunity to get to do it. Let's pray. Father, we ask in the name of Jesus, God, help us. Help us, God, to be devoted. God, you are worthy of our devotion. You alone, God, are worthy of our worship. God, you have done everything to save us. You have done everything to set us free. You did everything for your church. You gave your life for the church. And now, God, I pray that we give it back to you, that our lives would be about the house. That yes, we honor our families. Yes, we honor our work. But God, above all things, we honor you, and we make time for your house. We make time to bear one another's burdens. We make room in our budget to sacrifice for the opportunity to share. God, we ask that we would be a church where life change happens, no matter if they're lost and looking for the light, or God, if they are hurting and they just need a shoulder to cry on, or if they're in the process, not yet polished, still rough around the edges, but welcome to the seat of truth. God, we ask these things in your name. And the church said, amen. Would you join us as we worship together?